Hi, hello! It's been a minute. I've been super busy, but I wanted to share with you a quick video of something I've been working on in whatever spare time I do actually have at the moment. I managed to scan my face, my whole head, in 3D mode, and then print that off on a 3D printer and do a life cast. So now I actually have a 3D printed life cast of my face. It's not 100% amazing because it is faceted instead of being super smooth like me, but it's just something that I can work with because geographically I don't have like an art studio or anything to where I can go and get a life cast done. So if this is a situation that you're finding yourselves in, follow along with this. There's a lot of free stuff that I'm going to show you that you can use to kind of get on your way. Let's get into it. So the first step was to go to a website called AvaTurn. I'm not sponsored by these people. I think their product is really cool though, and this is just what I did. I used it on a phone and I just followed the directions, took 3 photos of my face, one from the front and another 2 from one of each side. I did tie my hair back because I do have long hair, and that is part of the thing, especially if you have glasses. I think that's another thing, is to take off your glasses before you do this. And then from there, I was able to get a render of a 3D model, and I downloaded that into another free product called Blender. Once I was able to get the 3D render from AvaTurn, I downloaded it, imported it into Blender. It's another free product. Again, I'm not sponsored, but if you can go and donate to Blender or even AvaTurn, I highly encourage it because they are awesome products, especially for the fact that they are free. Now, I will say this, once I downloaded the 3D render into Blender, I had to delete a lot of stuff. Like, I didn't need from my neck down, so all of that just went away, and I was left with a head. Now, I will note, I did notice AvaTurn did pick up my chin. This is my particular chin. That's how it looks between the chin and the neck, and I appreciate that. The only thing it didn't quite do, my nose is actually crooked. I'm not, too disposed over that, but it is a thing that I did notice. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to affect me when I start to make like full face prosthetics, because this nose is straight and mine actually is not, if you notice there. So you get kicked in the face by a cow when you're 10 years old, it won't be straight. But anyway, once I was done deleting everything that I didn't need and getting the final product of the head, I had to then take it and put it into Prusa. Once I imported the 3D render from Blender into Prusa, which again is another free program that you can download, and no, I'm not sponsored, I had to take the 3D head and I had to cut it up into about 5 pieces. And the reason I had to do this is because my printer is a very entry-level basic printer called a Creality Ender 3. And I know there's going to be some people here making a face going, oh, you use that? Ew. It's what I can afford right now. Eventually, I would like to upgrade to something with a bigger bed, but right now, those that I'm eyeballing cost like $1,000. Not quite there yet, so I'm just going to use what I have to my disposal at the moment. Each piece, once I cut it up, and there was about 5 pieces, took about 19 to 22 hours to print. I used a Tech Bears Pet G. That the nozzle, I believe, I was about 245 degrees, and the bed was around 70 to 75 degrees. Once I got everything printed, I started to just put it together to see how it was going to fit. I did notice there were some gaps. Again, like I said, this is an Ender 3. It's not the most amazing printer in the world. Also, the room that I have the Ender 3 in does have some hot and cold fluctuations, and I know that does affect how the print ends up in the long run. Also, it snowed in Florida. So, and this is, I was printing this while that was happening. That did have a big effect on the heat fluctuations that were in that room, 100%. So, the thing I ended up doing was I bondoed everything where it wasn't quite matching up, and that did take me a couple days, and with a lot of sanding, some 320 grit, but I ended up with something alright, until the dog got to it. They knocked it off the table, they smashed the nose, I had to reprint a piece, and that is why after this you will notice the next section is not as long as the first section. I had to print that as well because part of it cracked all the way through, and even with some epoxy, it just wasn't really recoverable to a point that I liked it, so I did spend another weekend reprinting 2 pieces before I actually was able to do a quote-unquote life cast. The Bondo that I used was actually just drywall paste. It's the one where it comes in the tub and it goes on pink and you know that it's dry because it turns white and then you can sand it. I do recommend waiting several hours after it turns white to actually sand it because I did notice that it was still kind of soft when I was really just wanting to jump in there and just get it done and taken care of because I had lost so much time. Now, I did not actually film the process of me putting the silicone on. This is really the first time I've done something so large, and so I just wanted to focus on doing that and doing it to the best of my ability. I used a Dragon Skin 20 from Smooth On. I will say that for the fact that it gave me so much time, because the pot life is up to about 25 minutes, and I will say this, it went well beyond the 25 minutes before it really started to cure up. I liked it for this one merely because I had that amount of time that I could just really go in and make sure that, especially like behind the ears and up the nose and so on, it was actually getting coated to the best of my ability. I will note that in the end, a little bit underneath on the chin, it's a little thin. It's not the worst, but this took about 2 sample kits to get to where it is. One of the things I will say that, because I'm kind of new to this and I completely forgot to do it, was I did not make a clampable flange around on the jacket. I just went ahead and made a step so that the front of it and the back of it can fit together around the silicone mold. So oopsie on my part. It's a learning experience. I'll just have to make sure I write that down and make sure I remember to make a clampable flange, because that way I can hold it together with clamps the next time when I want to do like a casting and pour the cast in. This one I'm going to end up having to use like really big rubber bands or maybe like a truck tie down and just coil it around there and tie it off to hold it together. So oopsie on my part, but it is what it is. And as you see here, this is me de-gloving or demolding the 3D print from the silicone. I did the zigzag cut. It's one of those things that I have learned that is very important. You can't just make a straight line. The reason you do a zigzag cut and you make teeth is so that when you put this back together, it lines up exactly where it's supposed to be and there's no guesswork. So you can use this time and time again. And you're not going to have an issue with making sure it's lined up exactly the way it needs to be to give you that good cast. I will say this, because of how my work schedule is, between the time that I poured the silicone and had it on the 3D printed head versus when I pulled it off of the 3D printed head, it actually had to sit for about 4 or 5 days before I could get to it. It was super frustrating. I was really eager to see how it came out, and I was really bummed that I had to wait so long, but it was planning on my part, and it is what it is. But eventually I was able to get back home and I pulled it off, and it was beautiful. The ears, the nose, and everything on the inside, it looked fantastic. It filled wonderfully, and I couldn't wait to actually pour the cast, so I went right ahead and I did that the next morning after I had gotten home. Now again, because it's the first time, I did not actually film myself pouring the casting material into the silicone and all. I just wanted to focus on that and get it done. But this is how it turned out. I will note, I did forget, again, kind of new to this, I forgot to make one mixture and do it small and slosh into like the ears and all. So you'll note that there's actually air bubbles that formed at the bottoms of my earlobes on each side. Oopsie on my part. Again, another learning experience, but it's the only part of the entire thing that ended up like that. And it's really not something that's going to like ruin my day and make it so I can't use this. So I'm really looking forward to this being used as I go along and start to make facial prosthetics. I will say this took about 4 of those bags of casting material that I got from Joann's, and I poured it in the morning and I just left it alone for like the whole day. I didn't take it apart until I think around 9 o'clock the next morning, because I know from using this prior that there's a lot of water, and when I tipped it, once it started to really solidify, I tipped it and I felt the top of the head, and the top of the head was still very hot, so I know it was still curing, and that was well into that night where I had first poured it. So I left it alone until it was cool to the touch, and then I pulled it apart, and this is what I got. So looking really forward to using this. I'm so glad it actually turned out. I was really nervous. And I do hope once I start actually making and sculpting a prosthetic onto it and pulling that off and putting it onto me, how well it's going to fit or not. And I know it has those facets, but looking more over it, I really don't think it's going to affect how it wears once I have the prosthetic off. I really don't think those little facets where from the 3D render is really going to mess with it that much. It's such a small detail, even though it's around the whole thing. So But that's all I got for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope maybe this helped you if you were looking for a way around going to a studio to get a live casting done. And I'll catch you on the next one when I have some time. So thank you for watching. Catch you then. Bye-bye.